Everyone tells you to help others, to be generous, to be selfless. But Machiavelli would tell you to stop helping people. Not because he believed in cruelty, but because he understood a darker truth. Helping the wrong person at the wrong time doesn't make you noble. It makes you expendable. It turns your time, energy, and reputation into cheap currency that anyone can spend and no one respects. Strategic selfishness is not about abandoning empathy. It's about controlling it. It's about knowing that in the game of power, every favor costs you influence unless it is calculated, necessary, or returned. Machiavelli didn't view generosity as a virtue. He saw it as a liability. Because once you're known as someone who helps everyone, you are no longer respected. You are expected. That's the core of his first law of strategic selfishness. Help selectively or be used endlessly. Look around. Most people who constantly help others aren't admired. They're ignored. They become invisible, accessible, and replaceable. The more they give, the more people demand. And when they stop giving, they're not met with gratitude. They're met with resentment. Why? Because help without boundaries creates entitlement. Machiavelli saw this even among rulers. A generous prince would spend resources to please the people. And for a short time, he would be loved. But the love would fade. And when it came time to raise taxes or enforce discipline, that same prince would be hated far more than the one who had been firm and selfish from the beginning. The generous man digs his own grave. He trades his authority for applause. That's why the smart man isn't generous, he's strategic. He doesn't help because it's right. He helps when it makes him stronger. And if you help from weakness, from guilt, from fear, from a desire to be seen as good, you are not helping. You are offering yourself up for exploitation. This is the second law of strategic selfishness. If helping them weakens you, it strengthens them over you. Imagine a man who drops everything the moment someone needs him. A friend calls crying at 2 a.m., he picks up. A coworker asks him to cover a shift, he says yes, even when he's exhausted. His girlfriend disrespects him, but he keeps showing up because she's going through a lot. He tells himself he's a good person, but he's not respected. He's used because his kindness has no edge. His help has no terms. Now picture a different man, someone who listens but doesn't always respond, who says no without explanation, who helps rarely, but when he does, it's meaningful. People don't ask him for petty favors because they know he doesn't play that game. And when he does offer his hand, it means something. It's remembered. That's the difference Machiavelli understood. Help is not help unless it increases your leverage or enforces your boundaries. Anything else is bleeding for applause. And this is why people who give too much always burn out. Not because giving is bad, but because they give without calculating power. They assume that helping others will come back to them, that loyalty will be reciprocated, that people will remember their efforts. But Machiavelli knew the truth. People remember what benefits them, not what cost you. So if you help someone climb, they'll forget your hand once they're at the top. If you save someone from drowning, they'll complain about how wet they got. If you defend someone from being disrespected, they'll eventually wonder why you think you're so righteous. That's why Machiavelli would warn, don't help people out of hope. Help them out of strategy. When someone asks for your help, ask yourself, does this person deserve it or just expect it? Will this act cost me energy, focus, or reputation that I won't recover? What do I gain directly or indirectly from doing this? If the answer is nothing, and especially if this is a pattern, the answer is no. And when you say no, something interesting happens. The mask falls off. You'll see how people really feel about you. The ones who only liked you when you were useful will show their bitterness. The ones who respected you will respect you even more. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said it is better to be feared than loved, because love without respect is weakness, and fear, when properly managed, becomes quiet respect. Strategic selfishness is about creating distance. Distance makes people think twice before asking. It turns your time into something valuable. Scarcity builds respect. And in a world where everyone is constantly accessible, the man who is rare becomes powerful. You don't need to be cruel. You need to be cold with your yes, and even colder with your no. This leads to the third law of strategic selfishness. Help in public, deny in private. If you do help someone, make sure the right people see it. Let your name circulate in the right room. Let others witness your strength, your generosity, your dominance. Machiavelli was not against displays of kindness. He was against invisible sacrifice. A prince, he said, should do all the harm in private and all the help in public. Why? Because the perception of power matters more than the intention. If you suffer in secret to help people who will never return the favor, you are weakening your own myth. But if you are seen helping once, powerfully, it becomes part of your reputation. This is not manipulation. This is reputation management. And Machiavelli understood that power is not only what you do, but what people think you are capable of doing. So when you help, make it strategic. Help people who are rising in influence. Help people who are loyal to you visibly. Help people when it increases your control over a situation. Help people when the act of helping builds your authority, not erodes it. Stop helping people to be liked. Start helping people to be feared, respected, or strategically remembered. And when someone pushes back, when they say you've changed, that you're not as kind as you used to be, smile. That means your softness was useful to them, and now it's gone. That means they were not your friend. They were a dependent. Machiavelli's world is brutal, but it's real. And in that world, there are only two types of men: the man who helps everyone and is slowly forgotten, and the man who helps selectively and becomes impossible to ignore. You decide which one you want to be. The moment you stop helping people automatically, something strange happens. You begin to see who was loyal to your character and who was loyal to your compliance. Most people aren't attached to you, they're attached to the benefits of being near you. Your energy, your support, your effort. And the second you withdraw those things, they reveal their true face, not with words, but with silence, entitlement, guilt-tripping, or even rage. Machiavelli understood this human impulse. Use what's easy, discard what's firm. And that's why his philosophy wasn't about being heartless. It was about becoming untouchable. Because the man who helps everyone is the one who ends up begging when he needs help himself. The man who gives too much has nothing left when it's his turn to be carried. This leads us to the fourth law of strategic selfishness. Never help people who refuse to help themselves. This is the man who always needs advice but never applies it. The woman who always complains but never changes. The friend who keeps making the same mistakes but calls you to clean up the mess. These people don't need help. They need you to enable their weakness so they don't have to grow. And the longer you stay in their orbit, the more they will absorb your strength while keeping their dysfunction. Until one day, you'll start to mirror their weakness instead of lifting them up. Their laziness will seep into your standards. Their excuses will infect your vision. Their chaos will erode your peace. Not because you're weak, but because you're close. Proximity is permission. Machiavelli's advice would be simple. Cut them off, not as revenge, but as prevention. You're not punishing them. You're protecting your momentum. You're guarding the discipline it took you years to build from the casual decay of someone who sees your time as infinite. And this isn't just about toxic people. It applies even to well-meaning people in your life who depend on you too much. Because dependence, even from love, becomes resentment when it is one-sided. That's why the fifth law of strategic selfishness is crucial. Help in ways that build dependence on your terms, not theirs. This is what rulers, politicians, and powerful thinkers have done for centuries. They never give everything. They give just enough to establish leverage. Just enough so that the receiver remembers, I need him. Not he's so kind, but he's the reason I'm standing. Machiavelli wrote that it's better for a prince to be feared than loved, but best of all is to be feared and seen as necessary. So when you do help, make sure what you give cannot easily be replaced. That's why blindly giving money, time, or labor often backfires. These things are common, but wisdom, influence, access, these are scarce. Help people in ways that elevate your positioning. For example, don't just lend someone money. Give them an opportunity to work under your terms. Don't just give your time. Use that time to make your project stronger while helping theirs as a byproduct. Don't just listen to someone vent. Guide the conversation toward your agenda, your philosophy, your leadership. Every interaction should serve as a subtle reminder. You are not their emotional sponge, you are their axis. Their access to power, to clarity, to movement. That's how you help without being drained. You become the kind of person people aspire to be like, not just lean on. And the shift is massive. Because once people see you as a source of power, they no longer feel entitled, they feel reverent. And reverence builds distance. Distance builds control. And control builds security. This is the foundation of Machiavelli's sixth law. Stop helping people out of emotional pressure. Help only when it increases your autonomy. Most people say yes because they feel guilty. They feel bad saying no. They don't want to be seen as selfish. But every yes made out of emotional pressure is a small theft from your future. Every obligation that dilutes your focus is a tax on your destiny. And those taxes add up. Days lost, energy scattered, priorities reshuffled. You do not owe anyone the pieces of your potential, especially not people who would never bleed the same for you. Machiavelli would say, coldness in the name of purpose is not cruelty, it is clarity. Your time is a weapon. Your presence is currency. And if you give it away like it's nothing, that's exactly what it becomes. So what do you do instead? You build what Machiavelli revered more than charity: perception. You become the man who helps rarely, but whose help transforms. You become the man whose refusal is feared more than whose acceptance is celebrated. You become the man who offers strength like a king, not a servant. And to do this, you must speak less and do even less, unless there is return, unless there is movement toward power, unless your yes creates distance from the noise and gravity toward your goals. It's not selfishness, it's strategy. Because without strategy, kindness becomes self-slaughter. The truth is, every time you help someone, you either build your empire or get used to build someone else's. And the world isn't kind to the builders who sacrifice their bricks for strangers who walk by. So the next time someone asks for your help, pause. And remember, you are not a lifeboat. You are the storm they should have learned to survive. If they want your help, make them earn it. If they want your time, make it worth something. And if they get angry when you say no, you just found someone who never saw your value to begin with. Machiavelli wouldn't say, stop helping people to make you bitter. He'd say it to make you dangerous. There is a brutal truth that every powerful man must swallow. Helping too much turns you into a servant, no matter how noble your intentions were. And in Machiavelli's world, a servant is not a role, it's a reputation. Once you're seen as someone who exists to make others feel better, fix their mistakes, or absorb their burdens, you are no longer seen as a leader, a thinker, or a threat. You are seen as a tool, and tools are only respected while they're useful. The seventh law of strategic selfishness is this: if they don't fear losing you, they never truly valued you. When you help endlessly, when you fix everyone's mess, when you're always there, they never get the chance to miss you, or fear your absence, or feel the weight of what you bring. Because your effort is constant, your energy is free, and anything that's always available is taken for granted. Machiavelli would have called this a failure of optics, a failure of emotional diplomacy. Because power isn't just about what you do, it's about what people perceive you might do or stop doing. You don't want people to be comfortable with your help. You want them slightly unsure, curious, on edge. Will he say yes this time? Is he watching? Is he calculating? That unpredictability creates reverence, and reverence creates control. There's a reason kings never kneel. Even when they bless someone, it's from above. Help, when given, must feel like a gift, not a debt you owe to the world, not an apology for your strength, not a reward for people being around you. This is why Machiavelli's most dangerous insight into human nature is this: people don't betray the ones who scare them, they betray the ones who save them. When you help someone climb out of a hole, you might expect loyalty, gratitude, respect. But what often follows instead? Envy, projection, disrespect. Because the moment you help someone, they must confront a truth. You had something they didn't. And to the insecure, that imbalance breeds bitterness. Machiavelli would warn, never help someone whose pride cannot handle your strength. Because even if they thank you now, they'll resent you later. Their ego will twist your help into humiliation. Their mind will reframe your guidance as control. And the day will come when they bite the same hand that lifted them, not because they're evil, but because they can't live with the fact that they needed you. This is the emotional landmine that undoes good men. They think being useful will protect them. That generosity is armor, that being essential makes them safe. But Machiavelli knew, no one is loyal to a man they secretly envy. So what do? You enforce the eighth law of strategic selfishness. Do not help people who treat your effort as invisible. This means if someone forgets what you've done for them, cut them off. If someone changes their tone the moment you say no, cut them off. If someone acts like your sacrifice was no big deal, cut them off. Because they're not just forgetting. They're redefining the narrative to put themselves back on top. And the more you help, the more they'll rewrite. You gave them money? They'll say you owed them. You gave them time? They'll say you had nothing better to do. You gave them clarity? They'll say they figured it out on their own. You held them together? They'll say you were overbearing. And if you don't walk away, they'll keep using you until you forget who you were before they needed you. This is why every powerful man has a moment when he goes dark, quiet, withdrawn, not out of hate, but out of clarity. He finally sees the pattern. The more I give, the more they expect, and the less I am respected. So he starts saying no, not with bitterness, with precision. He helps less, but what he offers is worth more. He speaks less, but when he does, people listen. He shows up less, but when he enters a room, everyone straightens their posture. Because now, his energy has weight. His presence has gravity. His generosity is remembered not because it's frequent, but because it's rare. That's the 9th law of strategic selfishness. Let them feel the drought before they can value the rain. Cut off your help before it's taken for granted. Cut off your time before it's drained by the undeserving. Cut off your kindness before it becomes routine background noise in someone else's story. Only then do people start to count the seconds you give them. Only then do they think before they speak. Only then do they wonder, am I worthy of his time? And that question is the goal. Because once they're asking it, you've already won. Once your help becomes a privilege, not a reflex, you've already changed the power dynamic. Once people fear losing your attention more than they crave using your time, you've entered the realm of control. But to reach this place, you must break your addiction to being needed. That's the final illusion, that helping everyone gives you purpose. It doesn't. It gives you distraction. Purpose is built in silence, in loneliness, in choosing your battles with brutal clarity. And yes, some people will call you cold, selfish, arrogant. Let them. Because every insult you receive for protecting your time is a compliment in disguise. It means they were feeding off you. And now the buffet is closed. You're no longer here to help people who can't help themselves. You're not here to fix broken systems with your energy. You're not here to bleed for people who clap when you suffer and disappear when you need. You're here to build something ruthless, something real, something that cannot be stolen, drained, or demanded. Your empire, your legacy, your mind. And from that foundation, you will help again, but only when the ground is yours, and only when your yes is a weapon, not a weakness. The most dangerous man is not the one who helps no one. It's the one who could help you but chooses not to. That hesitation he creates, that pause before you ask, that silent reminder of your place, that is power. And that is the final evolution of Machiavelli's law of strategic selfishness. You must become a man whose help is feared, not assumed. Because the world does not value what is free. It studies what is scarce. And when your help becomes rare, your presence becomes sacred. The 10th and most absolute law is this. The most powerful form of help is making people realize they don't have access to you anymore. This isn't about ego. It's about signaling. In Machiavelli's world, power was not maintained through charity. It was maintained through mystique, unpredictability, and control over one's resources, especially emotional ones. He would say, a prince is respected when he is a man of his word only when it is advantageous. Otherwise, break the promise. In other words, obligation is the leash they tie to your neck. And every time you help out of duty, you tighten the rope yourself. You must become a man who does not move unless it moves him, who does not answer unless it serves a higher goal, who does not respond emotionally, even when provoked, who can sit in discomfort, in accusation, in silence, and never flinch. Because your final test is this. Can you let people suffer without rushing to save them? Can you watch someone drown in a problem you used to fix and say nothing? Can you read a manipulative message and leave it on scene? Can you hear them whisper about how you've changed and wear it like a badge of honor? Because until you can, you are still a servant of their expectations. You are still addicted to being needed. You are still more useful than powerful. Machiavelli's true lesson was never be cruel. It was be unavailable to those who don't deserve your effort. Because your help, when misused, turns enemies into parasites. They stop attacking you. They start feeding off you. And that's worse. At least enemies give you the dignity of open war. Users wrap themselves in the language of friendship, loyalty, family. They say, "You're the only one who understands," or "I'd do it for you," or the classic, "Don't forget where you came from." But you didn't rise from kindness. You rose from clarity, from knowing what cost too much and never paid back. So here's what you do. You stop responding to guilt. You stop defending your boundaries. You stop helping everyone simply because you can. You step back. You vanish. You watch. And you'll see it with new eyes. Some people only called when they needed. Some people only praised you when you were convenient. Some people were never loyal to you, just to the role you played in their drama. And when you break the role, they break the illusion. You realize helping them was never about lifting them up. It was about keeping you down. It made you accessible, familiar, humble, easy to predict. And now, you're none of those things. You're dangerous, because your time is no longer theirs. That's when you begin to see what Machiavelli always saw. Strategic selfishness is the root of authority, because when you stop giving to be loved, people start loving you for what you don't give. When you stop being the helper, people start wondering how they can help you. And when your time becomes rare, your presence becomes a throne. People don't approach it casually. They prepare. They think twice. This is how kings are born. They do not help everyone. They help when the moment is right. They help in a way that reinforces their dominance. And most of all, they help after they've won, not while they're still fighting to be seen. So now, ask yourself, who in your life drains your fire under the disguise of needing help? Who would disappear if you said no 3 times in a row? Who has never once asked how you are doing but constantly comes to you in chaos? And then ask the real question, why are they still in your life? Because every moment you spend helping someone who doesn't deserve it, you're robbing yourself of clarity, of focus, of momentum, of the ruthless solitude required to build something unstealable. Machiavelli's final move would be this. He would help one person in a room full of 10, publicly, sharply, with impact. And he would let the other 9 sit in silence, wondering what they did wrong, calculating how to earn it next time, fearing what happens if they never do. That is help. That is control. That is power. Stop helping people until it builds your name, until it sharpens your image, until it feels like a reward, not a reaction. And when they finally ask why you changed, don't explain. Just say, I help kings, not beggars with opinions.